former IBF world champion at 140 pounds and now contender up at welterweight, Sergey Lipinets says come this Saturday, he wants an all-action fight. He doesn't want a 12-round marathon. He wants an all-out war against rising welterweight sensation Jaron "Boots" Ennis. We're going to talk about those comments ahead of that fight in this video. Welcome back to the channel, people. I hope you're all doing well. Of course, you're tuned in to Talk to Budge, and it's your boy here, Budge. Welcome. As I always say, please wipe your feet before you come in. You're more than welcome to hang with me on the channel, but you need to wipe your feet. You need to hit that like button. You need to hit that subscribe button. You need to sign up for all notifications. So whenever a new video drops, which is on a daily basis, you are always the first to be able to see, watch and hear it. And of course, we are building this platform from the very beginning. You are the lucky few that have had the opportunity to see the content nice and early and are starting along this journey with me. But I need your help. In order to build a channel, I need you to spread the word. I need you to share this video with your WhatsApp group chats, with your work colleagues, with your boxing friends. I need you guys to help me really to push it, man. And also, I want to hear from you. The reason why I created this platform was not only for me to just share my thoughts on certain things, but to hear from you. That's why it's called Talk to Budge, because I'm sharing my view on particular topics, but I want to hear from you as well. I want to know what your perspective is. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think something different? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a discussion. You know, talk to me. Let me know what your point of view is. Anyway, that being said, this Saturday, there is a huge welterweight dust-up between Sergey Lipinets, who I already mentioned was the former IBF world champion down at 140, light welterweight, before moving up to welterweight. And of course, the rising star from Philly in the US, Jaron "Boots" Ennis. Now, going into this fight, Sergey Lipinets has a record of 16-1 and 12 KOs. Now, you might remember his only loss came at the hands of Mikey Garcia, who of course is a 4-division world champion and actually won a belt in the 4th weight class that he's campaigned at in that fight. He's the one that took Sergey Lipinets' 140-pound title, and that's how he became a 4-division world champion, right? So in terms of his resume, Sergey, and that was a 12-round fight. So Sergey Lipinets has only got one loss in his resume, and that being at the hands of Mikey Garcia, who is a 4-division world champion and who is arguably one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world at this moment in time, right? He himself only has one loss, and that was a loss against Errol Spence, who a lot of people consider as the #1 welterweight in the division at this moment in time, right? So Sergey Lipinets has a great resume. Jaron "Boots" Ennis goes into this fight 26-0. So he's an undefeated fighter, and 24 wins have come by way of knockout. The problem is, though, ultimately, that Jaron "Boots" Ennis hasn't fought anyone of the caliber of a Sergey Lipinets. So this is his coming out party. This is his big step up. And that's exactly what the fight is being billed at, right? Billed as, sorry. In his previous fight, that was supposed to be his first step up fight for the IBO welterweight world title against Chris Van Heerden. And of course, Chris Van Heerden was going to be the biggest name, or up until this point, has been the biggest name on Jaron Ennis's resume, because he's been around the block a little bit. He only has 2 losses on his resume. I think he's got 1 stoppage loss and that was at the hands of Errol Spence back in 2015, I believe. So he was a fairly solid opponent. But that fight, of course, ended prematurely in the first round, courtesy of clash of heads, which saw Chris Van Heerden get a nasty gash on his head, which meant that he couldn't continue, and the fight ended up being a no decision, which of course would have been a huge disappointment for Jaron Boots Ennis, because that was his step up at that point in time. Now he's got his wish in getting another top opponent in the ring with a good name, with a fairly decent resume, that he can now use as a platform for him to get bigger and better fights in the future. And in the run-up to this fight between Sergey Lipinets and Jaron Boots Ennis, I've watched a lot of interviews and particularly from Jaron Boots Ennis, and the pre-match conference or pre-fight conference and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just really interesting to see what Sergey Lipinets' camp came out with in terms of their assessment of Jaron Boots Ennis. I've got a few quotes that I want to read out just for you guys to hear and know as well. So this is what Sergey Lipinets and his camp had to say. When I first saw him, of course he's talking about Jaron Boots Ennis, before I knew we were even going to fight him, I was like, oh man, this guy is something else. We had to spar a lot of southpaws to prepare for Ennis. Getting the right sparring was critical. We progressed very well with adapting and emulating what he's going to do. It took a few weeks to get acclimated to that unique style. You don't find many guys that fight like him. He's kind of like a jazz player. There are no written notes. He's not predictable. It's not easy to pin down and know what he's going to do. He is difficult for anybody. And in that little excerpt, in those comments, I think Sergey Lipinets and his camp have perfectly summarized the issue that will lie before them come Saturday fight night, right? Because Jaron Boots Ennis, for those of you who might not know about him, I think you absolutely should be checking for this guy, because he is one of the up-and-coming prospects coming out of the welterweight division. And the thing about this guy is that it's so difficult to prepare for him, just like they said, because he's got everything in his locker. He's a switch hitter, so it's interesting they were speaking about fighting against southpaws and trying to get southpaw sparring. Fair enough, he can fight southpaw, but he can fight orthodox. He's even said himself in interviews that he, at times in fights, will switch and doesn't even realize that he's switching, because both sides feel natural for him. That's someone who is a big problem. That's someone who is definitely going to be difficult to figure out, because of the fact that they can fight equally well both sides. We've seen so many fighters who are switch hitters give people so many problems because of the fact that they're always changing their angles, they're changing their looks, and it's very difficult to prepare for. But it's not just the fact that he is a brilliant and slick boxer who can fight both sides, but also can fight on the back foot. He's a great outboxer as well. But to add insult to injury, he is a guy who is big for the division. I mean, you could clearly see he's spoken about his ambitions to move up to go up to 154 and potentially 160. So light middleweight and middleweight in the future. He's absolutely got the frame for that. But he actually has a lot of power as well. He's got a punch on him. 24 knockouts out of 26 fights is no mean feat. That's a pretty impressive knockout ratio. So you can see the guy is fully and well-rounded. And, with all of those things considered, I think Sergey Lipinets has a lot on his hands come Saturday. And he's fully aware of that. The counter-argument, though, of course, is that Jaron Ennis hasn't fought anyone of the caliber of a Sergey Lipinets. So this is really going to be an opportunity for us to, test his temperature. Let's see, when he's up against someone who is going to bring it, who's going to come forward and who wants to press the action. Let's see what he does. Let's see how he manages. Let's see how he handles the step up in terms of the stage. He's headlining this card. He is, the main attraction for the first time in his career, ultimately, on Showtime. So, is he gonna be able to manage under the bright lights? Ultimately, we're gonna answer or have the answers to all of those questions come Saturday and come fight night. But the reason why I find it really interesting what Sergey Lipinets said about him wanting an all-out fight and an all-action fight, and he wants to press the action and he wants it to be a slobber knocker. He doesn't want it to be a boxing at range and at distance for 12 rounds. The reason why that's interesting is because even prior to those comments coming out, Jaron Ennis done an interview. I can't remember who it was with, but he did an interview and he was speaking about, it might have been with Brian Custer, but he done an interview and he was speaking about the fact that he knows exactly the kind of style that Sergey Lipinets is going to come with. He's going to come forward. He's going to try and press the action. And he says that means that their styles are going to mesh so well, because that means Sergey Lipinets is going to walk onto some big shots that he doesn't see coming. And ultimately, that is going to allow Jaron Ennis to win the fight in spectacular fashion. And to be honest with you, I have to agree with him. After watching that Mikey Garcia fight against Sergey Lipinets, it was exactly that. It was an all-out war. He kept on coming forward. He kept on pressing the action. And it meant that we got 12 rounds of action where we saw knockdowns, we saw bruises, bumps, we saw cuts in that fight and all the rest of it because of the fighting style of Sergey Lipinets. And I think it was just down to the fact that maybe Mikey didn't have the power to stop him, ultimately why he didn't. But Jaron Ennis is a different kettle of fish. The guy is huge for the division and he's got a lot of power. And I think that he does have enough power to stop a Sergey Lipinets. And ultimately, I believe that's how the fight is going to end. I see it ending in the mid to late rounds. I've got it in somewhere between the 9th and the 11th, maybe. Where I feel like Jaron Ennis is just going to carry on wearing him down. And he's going to keep coming forward and he's going to walk into some heavy shots that is ultimately going to allow Jaron Ennis to win this fight in emphatic fashion. That's ultimately my belief. That's where I see this fight ending and how I see it ending. But I still think it's going to be an exciting fight. And it is still a very good fight, especially for Jaron Ennis. At this stage of his career, it's really important for him to get a solid name on his resume, particularly because of the fact that he's found it so difficult to get a top-level opponent. He's also found it very difficult to get top-level sparring. So, we would hope that after this, he can kick on and, mix it up with the other top 10 welterweights in the division. You've got other guys that are struggling for fights. You've got Keith Thurman, who, since losing his belt to Manny Pacquiao, he's struggling to find an opponent and a dance partner. You've got Mikey Garcia, who still is trying to hang around for a potential Manny Pacquiao fight. That could be someone that Jaron Ennis mixes up with after this. And there's obviously a built-in story there because of the fact that both of those, should he come through Saturday and beat Sergey Lipinets, both he and Mikey Garcia will be the only two people that will have had wins over Sergey Lipinets. Of course, Terence Crawford still is in a position where he doesn't necessarily have a locked-in opponent. Of course, that one might be biting off a bit more than he can chew at this stage of Jaron Ennis's career. But he's made no secret of the fact that he wants all the top fights. He's called out Errol Spence. He's called out Terence Bud Crawford. He wants to fight against these guys. He wants to mix it up with the top of the division. And he's even came out recently with comments to say, look, once I get one belt, I'm going to get them all. I'm coming for everything. And I'm going to be undisputed at welterweight. Then I'm going to move up to 154 and I'm going to do the same thing there. So he's making it clear exactly what his intentions are. So, whilst a lot of people might disagree and say that it's too early in his career and he's a bit too green to get in the ring with the likes of a Errol Spence or a Terence Crawford, It's just good to see that he has that kind of temperament, that kind of mentality, and he's willing to get in the ring and mix it up with these guys. He's coming for it all. He's got that rugged mentality, and he's got that style to match as well. But I think it's going to be an absolute fireworks come Saturday. I can't wait to watch this fight. I can't wait to see what it looks like in the ring, and I can't wait to see both those fighters, but in particular Jaron Ennis, who of course I've got a lot of stocks in. I can't wait to see them put on brilliant performances, and I think, you know, Jaron Ennis is ultimately going to close the show in dramatic fashion. But that's my take on the matter. That's my perspective. Like I said, Sergey Lipinets is well aware of the challenge that lays before him in someone who, as he mentioned, is a bit of a jazz player and is very unpredictable. And Jaron Ennis understands that this is the ticket to the big time. He needs to get this win, and he needs to win well and convincingly if he wants to then push on and push up for the bigger and better opponents. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a different take on what the outcome of the fight is going to be? Let me know in the comments. One more time, a reminder, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us to grow the Talk to Budge brand and platform. And I'm going to catch you on the next video. Until next time, over and out.